right.
I don't always keep my cool, I admit that.
It depends, and we'll get into that in a minute, because we are going to be talking to Kevin in New York. Kevin, hello, can you hear us?
Hello.
Hi,
Kevin.
Hello again. Kevin.
Quick little side note.
Yeah.
That was going to be my name if my Christian folks had kept me. It was going to be Kevin.
So we've got two potential Kevins up in here. Okay, so Kevin, we need to find some kind of prize to send you. You've called 10 times, it sounds like.
Oh, wow.
So this is impressive. You are a valued customer. So what can we help you with this week?
Well, I've got another theory for you out there. It has to do with the scriptures of the Bible and Jesus' life, and something called the Peter principle. Now the reason before I even the Peter principle. Now this is just a study of work from someone else, but the reason why I'm going to talk about this is to try to get you to a point to think about to rethink the validity of the Bible.
But before we get into that, Kevin, though, I mean, I do want to get to that, and I appreciate you calling in with a theory. I'm curious about the Ouija boards and the wormwood and the pineal gland. Where are you with those?
I was talking about that with somebody last night.
Are those discarded at this point? Did we disprove those sufficiently? Are those still things that you carry with you? Because at this point, it would be dishonest of me to pretend like we had never heard of each other before, or that there isn't this backstory where you call in with a theory, and they're always fascinating, which is why I love these calls. But more than that, more than the theories themselves, I'm fascinated by you and why you gravitate towards these kinds of theories and what roles they play in your life. How do you do this research? How do you come up with these theories?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer. I do a lot of my own research. I try my very best not to be influenced by anyone else. And it takes a whole lot of reading. But those things that you mentioned earlier, I still do carry them with me. And it's not something, well, I mean, you guys brought up a lot of points in previous calls, but the reason why I haven't thrown them away is, well, there's still a whole lot of information that, I wasn't even able to get to that I still hold on to as well.
Right.
But
so that's good to know. I think one thing that we might try in the future is, instead of coming up with something else to talk about, we circle back and we give you that opportunity to tell us a little bit more about what you read and what you weren't able to get to in the other calls. So that might actually help us get a little bit deeper and find a little bit more common ground there. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can do that. I can change subjects really quickly, actually, because I have actually been wanting to call back into something I called in about a long time ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's up to you. We can talk about the Peter principle, which sounds intriguing, and leave this a continuation of conversations for next time, or we can kind of pull a 180 and pick up a past call. What do you feel like doing today?
That's a really good question. I'll continue to talk about the Peter principle and Jesus' life.
Okay, perfect. But can we agree that next time you call in, we pick one that we've already talked about and continue it?
All right, absolutely.
Cool, perfect. All right, we're on the same page. Let's go.
All right. Well, the Peter principle is a study in which it says that it's a key to unlocking parables within the Bible.
Okay.
Well, like one of the simple ones is that everyone understands that Jesus is inevitably translated in the language of parables as the Word. But he's not the only one in the Bible that this can be done with in order to further understand it. And
so just for our viewers who might not know, that would be interpreted as like in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And you're saying that the Word in parable there is actually Jesus in real life.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But it's actually literally meant both. That's the significance of it. But anyway, the Peter principle. Now, the reason why I get to this is because the word Peter was not originally the disciples' name, but it was actually Simon. But when Simon approached Jesus, he was given the name Peter because the name Peter means a rock.
I will build my church upon this rock.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I know the verse.
Knowing this, we can actually change whenever we see in the Bible the name Peter, we can replace with the church. It's not
I disagree with that. I don't think that's accurate. Because here we go. Here's a. Okay, I wake up and I call my little sibling and I say, "Good morning, you are my sunshine." Right? I call my little sibling my sunshine. Does that mean that every time anybody references my sibling, they mean literal sunshine? Like, we can have a metaphor or a parable in one place, but just because we've used words, we've paired words in one context doesn't mean those words are always going to be paired. That would make things very confusing. So do you do this with other books too, like Lord of the Rings? Do you read other books where one metaphor then extends throughout the entire novel?
Well, no, this works in a different sense because when there were conversations going on between Jesus and Simon, who Jesus named Peter, not only was Jesus directly talking to him, but he was also making prophecies for the church during that time, well into the time that we're living in.
How do you know that?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, or ask.
Well, when you replace the name Peter with the church in the Bible, you come to understand this. Like, for example, the scriptures itself confirm this in the story that the story of Jesus walking on water. Now, when this is from Matthew 14:22-33, when Jesus told his disciples to get into a ship and go to the other side, and he sent the multitudes away. Now, that itself in parable meaning was, that is to say that the body of believers would have to venture into the future without the tangible experience of Jesus' presence along the way.
Well, that's certainly one interpretation of it.
Yeah.
But why is this something that would convince me of the validity of the Bible, and not just that you have a different reading of it than I might have heard before?
Well, working with these same tools and the same story, Jesus walking on the water, you could also say that the Word was above the nations of the world because the sea represents the nations of the world.
Oh, geez, I've heard that one before. That's
Yeah.
so when Moses
how,
parts the Red Sea, is that also talking metaphorically? Did that not actually happen?
I think it is taken both literally and metaphorically.
Woof, that's a mind
Okay.
trip. So you're saying that everything in the Bible is at once wholly metaphorical and also really happened.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Oh, that's a big claim.
That is.
Because,
Neil, do you have questions for Kevin?
Well, so many, but where to start?
the reason why I say that the sea represents the nations of the world because Psalms 65:7 illustrates this by saying, "Which still is the noise of the seas, the noise of their waves, and the tumult of the people." Now,
it couldn't have meant that people were standing near the water, and both were happening at the same time.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Well, the way that psalm sounds more to me like there are a bunch of people shouting next to an ocean, and he wants both of them to shut up. Why is that not an accurate interpretation of that? Why does that have to mean that people mean water and water mean people, and throughout the Bible, that's just how that goes?
Well, that verse is just referring to words of mankind. That's why it represents the nations of the world and different denominations and so on and so forth.
Okay. So I'm still waiting for the part where this proves the validity of the Bible. Right now, I'm hearing that there are a lot of metaphors that you're reading into things, and that's very easy to do. I believe it was Sam Harris who walked through a bookstore, picked a random cookbook, and created an entire religion out of the metaphors that he read in the recipes. It's very, very easy, especially if you've been immersed in a text, to find metaphor in it. That's what AP Lit classes are all about, right? You find metaphor about why the curtains are blue in this scene and why, F. Scott Fitzgerald called New York sugar cubes instead of something else. And it's fun. It's fun, and it can feel very profound in the moment when you make that connection. But ultimately, that's you making the connection between things you think about and things you read. And that's your prerogative, and you are free to do that. But I don't see how that proves anything to me, who hasn't made those connections and don't think those metaphors are anything more than subjective.
Well, in a much larger sense, when Jesus was talking to Peter, in a much larger sense, all the parables, when they were understood, he was prophesying how the church would deny the church itself, even though they're teaching these things, would come to deny the things that they're teaching up until the time that we're living in. That's why we get strange things like Jesus asking Peter to feed his sheep asking Peter, do you love me? 3 times, and then say to feed his sheep as a response to what Peter says afterwards. But
Neil, what were you gonna say?
It's all prophecies as well. So that's why I.
Wow. So wait, it's literal, it's metaphor, and it's prophecy.
Prophecies are easy to write about after the fact.
they're especially easy to read into to create prophecy afterwards. Neil, I think you had a question for Kevin, though.
I did. Have you ever discussed this with another theist, another believer? And I kind of wanted to know if anyone has ever said to you that you're reading this stuff and interpreting it incorrectly, as opposed to how they feel about the scriptures.
I haven't discussed it with anybody, unfortunately. Probably because I just haven't had time, but I'm still in the process of reading all this. Now, the only frustration is that my brain can't contain all the information that I need to, but
and I feel you there.
I still find it significant.
Oh, that's not the issue here, though. I acknowledge that you find significance in it. Like, that's very clear to me. What I don't understand is why you finding significance in a text says anything to me about why I should find significance in a text. I personally think that Lord of the Rings is the best book ever written. And yes, it was one book. It was split into 3 because paper rationing during the World War. So
that's right.
Don't at me. But my question for you is, okay, you think this is very symbolic. You think that these are metaphors. You also think that these are prophecies. You've done some reading that makes you think this. Why? What can you give me the sources that you are citing so that I can also do this research? Or do you have some kind of argument to make me feel more like you have some sort of objective grasp of this as opposed to just your opinion, man?
Well, it's subjective anyways.
I can give you a story. Some of this information I'm giving you is from an author named Robert C. Farrell. And you would have to listen to a video of his called The Guidebook of the Elect. Now, it has to do with something that I've called in before, in which now people have got to understand, people who are believers, that they believe that there's going to be a second coming of Jesus, but if
it's already supposed to have happened, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to come back in the time of his apostles or whatever.
Well, that did happen, but it still happened in such a way to where they didn't believe that it actually happened.
Okay, so here's a question for you, because that's a really good point, Neil. I'm still working through this whole literal metaphor prophecy thing. So Jesus told his disciples point blank that they would be alive when he returned. Now, that cannot both be literal and prophecy, right? So that could either be he's talking metaphorically and his returning is a metaphor for something else, in which case it's not literal. Or it could be a prophecy that his disciples maybe means the church later on, and that if the church survives long enough, he will come back. That's a prophecy, but that's not literal. Or it could actually mean that he is coming back and his disciples are going to see him again before they die. That would be literal, but that would also be false because that didn't happen. So in this one instance, I don't see how it can be all 3 things. Can you walk me through why you think it can be literal, prophecy, and metaphor all at once? Or if not, where you think the distinction is between determining what is literal and what is metaphor and what is prophecy?
Well, it also says in the scriptures that the kingdom of God is both within and above. And that's why it was also said that it was important for one person to get to know themselves. But when it comes to Jesus' disciples and Jesus saying that this generation wouldn't pass away before seeing the coming of the kingdom, that was because redemption was set forth during their lifetimes, in which they would have inner peace. Inner peace is a part of the kingdom of God that he was talking about.
So the kingdom of God means inner peace. I've got inner peace. Does that
Me
mean
too.
that we can call off the apocalypse and the end of the world isn't happening? Because, hey, we've got it. It came. It showed up.
No, no,
Okay,
not at all. Because
so where are we differentiating between the kingdom of heaven meaning inner peace and the kingdom of heaven meaning an actual descent into Earth's atmosphere from on high?
well, because like it goes back to the story that I was trying to tell you about Jesus walking on the water and how it's supposed to be an example for the church to not be caught up in worldliness, or else they'll sink into the sea, which is the nations of the world.
Can you sink
Because
into a
when-
nation?
Into a sea? Can a nation sink into
No,
a sea?
it's just that the sea is representing the nations of the world. And Peter representing the church, when he got out of the boat to walk towards Jesus on the water, he became afraid because when he saw the intense wind and the high waves, which represents the backlash of tradition and
Wait. Okay.
Wait.
Where'd you get that one from? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, here, Kevin, let me explain kind of where I'm having a problem with this. Let's take that story. Let's take that parable, right? But I'm going to say that the water represents financial instability, and Jesus represents a full-time job, and I am Peter, and I just got out of the boat that is grad school. And I am struggling with financial insecurity, and I'm going to sink, and oh no. And then here comes Jesus, and Jesus is personifying a full-time position that gives me stability and the ability to work and make money and be self-sufficient. And so I need to keep my eyes on that full-time job and continue pursuing it so that I don't fall into the ocean of bankruptcy or what have you. That to me is my interpretation of that story. Let's say. What makes your interpretation better than my interpretation?
Good question.
Well, this is where I would say that it's not up to us to determine it, but this is why I'd like to say that we get the validity of the scriptures from itself, and that the interpretation.
Wait, we have a book that is founded on metaphor, and it's not up to us to interpret it? How are we supposed to interpret a metaphorical text if we're not allowed to interpret it? Either it's literal and it's not up to us and we need to follow it by the letter, or it's not literal and it's metaphorical, in which case it is up to us to interpret it. And that's why we have as many denominations as we have. That's why we're having this conversation right now. So again, it can't be both.
And how do you know you interpreted it correctly, Kevin?
Exactly. That is the main point. Thank you, Neil.
You're correct, because now when I say that it's literal, metaphorical, and prophecy, I'm just referring to the New Testament.
We were talking about the Old Testament a minute ago, and you pulled it from Psalms. You pulled that explanation about the water being a crowd from Psalms. Psalms isn't in the New Testament.
That's Old Testament. The Psalms also has the one about dashing infants against rocks and stuff like that. So, in the Psalms.
Now, the Old Testament itself should be just taken metaphorically, because the author of the Old Testament was Moses.
Whoa. Okay, I was raised Jewish. I grew up with the Old Testament. I was never told to take it metaphorically. I was told, even by my rabbis and stuff at the time, that it was the inerrant word of God, which I always had questions with even back then. But anyways, that's what I was told. So now you're telling me that I should have just accepted it as metaphor?
Yes, in a certain sense, yes. Because
oh my gosh, Neil, you were so wrong. You and this ancient religion of yours.
Because a lot of the stories in the Old Testament shows how God's people had fallen into trouble because they weren't listening to the law. And even
did you hear my earlier
so,
comments to the last caller at all, Kevin? About being born to Christians but yet given up for adoption and raised Jewish. So I guess maybe now either God put me with the correct people or he didn't want me to follow Jesus. One or the other, right? If it's all going according to his plan, right?
No, not at all, because just like I was saying that Peter can be understood as the church, James can be understood in parable as the Jews.
Parable, okay.
There was significance of all of the 12 disciples.
There is what now?
Yeah, say that again.
There was parabolic significance for all the 12 disciples.
Okay.
So,
well, at this point,
there were other
Kevin, at this point, I feel like we're just going around and around. And you're saying, I'm seeing metaphor in here. And I'm saying, tell me why you're seeing metaphor and why it's a better metaphor than the one I'm using. And you say, it just is. God just meant it this way. And I just know it, which isn't convincing and doesn't really make for a good conversation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on for now, but I do want you to call back and we can choose to pick this up again or any of the other topics you called about. But next time I'm laying down the law that it needs to be about something we've already discussed so that we can continue to dig down and have this conversation. Okay.
All right. But the next time I call, I guess I'll try to talk about the very first thing I ever called in about.
Oh, perfect. Is this the Ouija boards and the occult?
Oh, geez.
It was about the Book of Enoch and the concept of black hole.
That was you, wasn't it? All right, cool.
All
well, I will look forward to talking with you later.
Kind of wish you would have picked that one today, Kevin.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
All right. Thank you. I'll try to.
Whoop. Hung up on him. Sorry, Kevin. Yeah.
He's all over the place, that guy, eh?
A little bit. Yeah. Just a touch. But no, and here's the thing. I'm happy to talk with you as many times as you call in, as long as you're calling in good faith and want to have a conversation. And to my mind, Kevin doesn't strike me as a Poe, so we're good.
No, I think he just has all these little ideas and he might be confused on a few of them for sure.
Exactly. So definitely, if you're a repeat caller, taking a note from Kevin's book and making sure that we are continuing a conversation, ideally, as opposed to always starting a new one, because then we raise objections and never follow up, which isn't always that gratifying for us or for the viewers.
Or productive.
Exactly.